GDP report could show solid fourth quarter growth, but still signal a recession is coming, economists say. U.S. economy grew at the end of 2022, defying recession fears. The economy weathered interest rate hikes imposed by the Fed. U.S. economy doesn't look as good as GDP suggests. And hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The GDP came out. It beat the estimates. However, I want you to take a look at the numbers in particular, and I think you'll be able to see for yourself and make up your own mind. So here's the headline here. U.S. economy beats expectations with 2.9% growth. Let's talk about the fourth quarter here. And it's important to take a look at the chart here. You can see clearly that the GDP did grow. It was down a couple of quarters earlier this year, as you guys can see as well. And then you had that crazy swing back in 2020 and 2021. It did grow in the fourth quarter, but the growth has slowed compared to the third quarter. If you asked, in terms of, what's the future going to hold, because this is all sort of why we're here, basically we're looking at maybe a flat growth in quarter one and then maybe a decline in quarter two of this year. But, no one knows for sure. I just want you to see the numbers for yourself that, yes, the GDP to go up, but it is down in growth from the prior quarter. The other thing, too, which you want to take a look at as well, is demand. One of the things that we saw from the Microsoft thing, and I've mentioned it to you guys before, talking about Microsoft earnings, I think the big concern is really consumer demand. There's another concern as well, and I mentioned to you guys several times on this channel, and you'll never hear me stop talking about it. Essentially is, regardless of what the economy does, up, down, left, right, the most important thing is what happens in your life. Do you have a job or not? Can you pay the bills around your neighborhood or not, right? Do you feel like that you're having a good life? And that's going to be different for everyone. I just keep seeing more layoffs that keep being announced. So that's why I mentioned, you may see, hey, GDP, rose 2.9%, but if you were fired, then it doesn't really matter to you, right? You're concerned about your neck of the woods, of course. If you do look at the chart as well, and this is sort of why you want to look at different charts, this takes a look at fourth quarter GDP in each year, and you can see that it fluctuates, right? This particular year is lower than the prior years, and you guys can see it for yourselves. So the black line is where we are now, and it is clearly smaller than the other one. So certainly we are slowing down, but not necessarily crashing. So that's sort of the thing where, if you're more of the bullish side of things, you say, hey, the Fed's going to pull off, not a crash, we're going to pull off a soft landing. They're going to be raising interest rates just at the right amount of level and leave it elevated for just the right amount of time. So we'll see. If you understand what's going on, we've been talking about this several times. Basically, inflation's been too high, right? Prices have been soaring, as I'm sure you guys know. And essentially, the Fed has been saying they want to get inflation down to 2%. And one of the things that they've been doing is raising interest rates. And I've been expecting more layoffs and unemployment to go up, with just basically tempered demand. We will see, because one of the things that's been going on is the unemployment hasn't been going up as quickly as people had expected, myself included. And you're seeing, though, however, here's a big however, you're seeing sort of different companies react differently. So, for example, these are companies that are hiring. If you want to get a job at Walmart, they're increasing their salary. If you want to get a job at Chipotle, they are hiring. My understanding is that they're saying it's like burrito season coming and stuff like that. However, if you want to get a job at, say, like Meta or Google or say Twitter, just for example, they're firing, IBM is firing, these kind of things. So you're seeing a shift in jobs. And I think one of the things, that's why I mentioned sort of like something real wage. It depends what your situation is, because yes, you may have a job, but it may not necessarily pay for what, for the kind of lifestyle that you like. The other thing that too is I want to just do a follow-up on the whole glitch thing on the NYSE. So I read through this, and to be really frank, I don't understand it. Be really frank. The general explanation of what talking about the Wall Street glitch thing, where the stocks were going up or down by 10 to 20%. At open, it was 40 some stocks in the S&P 500 had this glitch, and you guys, we talked about this, and the explanation they gave is they had a backup system kind of thing, and that one of the staffer just forgot to flip the switch, and then it caused a glitch. And then basically what it was, there was no price floor at open, and so then all the bids and asks, all the bids essentially came in, and it was all over the map, and so you had wild swings. And then because the swings were so wild, it froze trading. I mean, I just explained to you, but I don't understand because it's just like, oh, okay, so a whole system is, based on someone flipping a switch. That's why I was like, what? And the other thing too is, I guess the SEC is probably going to find some people, look into it, and the New York Stock Exchange actually loses quite a bit of credibility. They're also too said that they were going to reverse some of the trades. I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't. Because even Charles Schwab, which is really interesting, they're kind of like essentially a retail banker slash broker. They wrote a pretty mean letter slash statement to the New York Stock Exchange, saying we don't like you guys, that kind of stuff, and essentially the retail investors, anyone who got hurt or whatever, or even helped, because some people could have made money off this. There's like, how long is this going to take? Where customers ever see the money again? How long, and stuff like that. So that's my opinion on that. I read through this stuff. I'm just like, I don't really get what's going on. You can make it what you like. I'm not a conspiracy theorist person, but I can read, and the stuff that it reads, like what it just seems like our whole system's kind of funky that way. So that's going on with that. So I wanted to update you on that. I mentioned before, as you're talking about GDP and stuff like that. One of the things that has been going on as well is the layoffs have been keep coming in. You keep hearing reports like this, and so this is a chart here of job cuts that are announced each month, and you can see here that it has been going up a bit. January tends to be the month where companies fire the most, so we're just making it through January. But we'll see. So one of the things that's going on as well, so you may see a GDP growth, but then each company out there will make a determination of their staffing needs for the year, right? So, and I'd love to hear people in comments in different industries that you're in. I know we have some people, just for example, that are longshoremen. So those are the people like that move the goods on and off ships, and they're saying that kind of activity has slowed. And we know that tech activity has slowed as well. The headlines were like S&P was going to cut 3,000 jobs, and then IBM is like 3,900 jobs. Now IBM's and these two companies, I mean, these are legit companies, so these are like people who have good jobs, etc. And it's essentially it's worrisome. I totally understand. For example, we saw something like Salesforce. I want to say it was like 10% of their. Could be wrong. Maybe it was 6%. You guys can correct me on the numbers. I just remember there was a major firing, and the CEO came out and did like a Zoom call with all the employees, and it was kind of mean about the firing. One of the things that I definitely do see stuff on the internet where many people feel like there's a disconnect from the way their work talks about jobs and layoffs compared to the average worker thing. And one of the things that I think is important to understand is when we look at these things as a whole is to know that you're not alone, and sometimes it happens that you didn't do anything wrong, right? It's just that your company maybe overhired and just had too many people like you, but you specifically, it wasn't like you were just horrible at your job. Just that they maybe had poor planning. The other thing too that we're looking at as well, the industry that's probably going to get hit really hard or has already been hit very hard, and we'll see if it continues to be like the anyone who's involved in housing. So I know that many people say we're in mortgages. Many of the banks have been firing for a while. I'd be curious for people, because I know we have people in the community that are real estate agents, because I just don't know if real estate agents, say for example, you have your license and you work at some sort of agency, but there just hasn't been enough business. But I don't know if they just fire realtors, because a lot of times these people are kind of like freelance, so not necessarily salaried. So I'd be curious at how that's going. But I do know in the mortgage industry is definitely slowed. There was a thing that probably won't reach the headlines, but I did want to bring it up so that you can just read this here. The U.S. trade deficit soared last year, nearing $1 trillion. The annual U.S. trade deficit in goods and services surged 13% last year. So this won't necessarily be a big headline. The big headline today will probably be, Tesla stock is spiking and GDP beat the estimates. But I want to bring this one up because honestly, the politicians, either Democrat or Republican, don't usually have a real discussion on this kind of thing. It's not necessarily inherently good or bad, but I just want to share my opinion. So one of the things that right now in U.S. politics, it's in vogue to bash on China, right? So you'll see Democrats or Republicans say, I hate China, and you'll even have Trump say, like, China, 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 how he talks, right? So, and you can make a determination whether or not he is racist or not. You can make your own determination on that. But for me personally, I don't, when I refer to any particular country, I don't have to use any kind of, odd way of saying that country's name. I just don't think that's appropriate. Now, my personal opinion on this whole issue, though, is one thing that neither party will talk about. It's in vogue to bash China, but it's never cool to bash Saudi Arabia. My opinion, as a U.S. citizen, I just wish that we weren't dependent on Saudi oil. I don't think that is a crazy thing to say, and it's not just Saudi. You could say any oil in the Middle East. I wish we could live in a world where the U.S. was more independent in terms of their energy, and also to developing more alternative energy. And I've said that several times on the channel. I think it's a crazy thing to say. I think we should make investments in, say, alternative energy, create jobs, and then use this technology to sell around the world. It's a crazy thing to say. So I'm all on board on energy. I think there's never going to be a time when we don't need energy. So part of the trade deficit, as I'm suggesting to you, is I wish we would talk more about becoming more energy independent. And this has been something that people like myself and my generation have been talking about for years. And it's kind of interesting where one of the essentially meme stock kind of stuff, say like a Tesla, is getting people on board to move down the EV train, per se. And so I do think the sort of cultural milieu is changing in terms of how we think about energy and looking forward to new technology, but it's slow. And so the deficit itself, there's many ways you could think about it. Certainly you could take a look at something like, for example, should the USA manufacture chips at home or abroad? I'm just saying, for example, because if you bring the plants back to the USA, you're certainly going to create jobs in the USA, of course, but it does raise expenses of things. So just for example, should if you're Apple and things like this, should you be making your iPhones in another country, or should you be making them in the US? That kind of thing. Also, too, as Americans, if you want a high standard of living, do you want to be importing lots of cheap goods from China and buying stuff at Walmart, that kind of thing, right? So this is it's a complicated issue, because this would be the question. Like, if let's say we made everything in USA, but things would cost more, because essentially you have to pay Americans more than, say, make manufacturing things in some, for example, like a Vietnam or Indonesia or Thailand, that kind of stuff. Is that something that Americans would want to do? There's multiple things you could talk about. You could talk about labor as well. And the other thing is too is when we do talk about any number of companies, this is something that I lived through in the 1980s. There was a lot of bashing of Japanese cars. I remember this, but the reports were, and I remember this at the time as a kid, was like BP Oil, which is British Petroleum, was buying large stakes in the USA. But there was no furor about that. So it's kind of the same sort of thing, to where it's in vogue to trash, say, a China or Japan, but not in vogue to trash, say, like in England or a Saudi Arabia. So this is sort of where I mentioned that our politics is a bit out of whack, but this sort of politicians talk to regular people in terms that they can understand. China bad, Japan bad, but let's not talk about Saudi Arabia or Britain, because multiple countries invest in USA, and USA invests in other countries. One of the things that is also be well aware is that in this day and modern world, there's so much money going around, and big companies like, we'll just say, for example, Microsoft again, they make so much money abroad. So regardless of what you think about Microsoft, I'm just telling you that they are a national company, and also too they're very concerned about their currency. So there's always a balance on this kind of thing. If the dollar is strong, we can buy more goods abroad. If the dollar weakens, then they can buy more of our goods. And so it's always a tricky thing of where the balance is, and that's sort of what the economy is, and are we printing money or not printing money. And I know I can go on and on about this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to bring this up to you, and I'm sure many people have strong opinions about the trade deficit, but sort of the thing I want to mention is that it is a complicated and nuanced thing. And also, too, we are interdependent on each other country-wise, but that has certainly changed during the pandemic, to where the USA has been pulling away, for example, China, and building relationships with other countries. One of the things that I've mentioned several times in the channel as well, I think the growth is going to be in India and Vietnam. But as you saw with the Adani situation, there's definitely a lot of corruption in India. We just had someone in the community from India make a comment on that, and I read the same thing to confirm it, to where essentially the Adani situation was like, they'll pump up their businesses and get a bunch of leverage / loans from government-backed banks, and then essentially have tight relationships with the government. And I can tell you in Vietnam is the same kind of situation as well. So one of the things that is always a challenge for the Americans who are always in pursuit of profits, right? Be it Apple or Tesla or whatever, when you're building, your products in other countries, sometimes other countries where they have cheap labor may also have corrupt governments, right? So it is what it is. That's the pursuit of profit. So this is sort of a quasi discussion of these sort of issues, and always enjoy talking to stuff with you guys. So again, the most important thing I would emphasize is, regardless of what the economy is doing and stuff like that, the most important thing is what are you doing, and how you are in your industry and your job and stuff like that. And I always say the same stuff. Make sure you have job skills that are valuable, that people will pay you to do things, and make sure you have good connections with people around you. So that's why we talk about the jobs on this channel, because I can't tell you exactly where the bottom of the market is. I can tell you what different forecasts are. I can show you numbers for yourself and charts. But regardless of any of those numbers and charts you got to make sure you have a job and make sure you got money coming in to take care of yourself. So that's sort of why I emphasize those kind of things as well, along with talking about money and stuff like that, because I think it's like, it doesn't matter what the market does if you have no money to put in the market, right? It doesn't matter what interest rates are if you have no money to put in your savings account to take advantage of said interest rates, right? So that's why we have to talk about said things. And so anyway, that's why I do multiple things on this channel. So anyway, I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.